Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to use subgraphs in ComfyUI. I wanted to make something for people to reference because some people on the subreddit were complaining that subgraphs were either unintuitive or the documentation was lackluster or that they were inferior to group nodes in some way. And I wanted to just hop on and compare the two features to give you a sense of what they're capable of and what they're not capable of right now. So I'm on a version of the app that has both group nodes and subgraphs at the moment. They're trying to deprecate group nodes. So if I select all these nodes here, I right click and I look over here, it says convert to group node deprecated. So they're trying to wean people off of group nodes before they just completely get rid of them. This wasn't here before, but they added it back in. I don't know how long that's going to last, but it's not going to be forever. So if I click convert to group node, give it a random name, you can see how they're all combined. And how you would manage a group node is you would right click it, you would go down here, manage group node, and then you could reorder these nodes and you can turn off and on these inputs, widgets, and outputs. So you would navigate to the node you want, you would find the widgets. So the case sampler has all of these widgets. If I wanted to turn off the steps, if I wanted to turn off the scheduler, I would do that, click those checkboxes, and then click save, and then it would update. And this is, I guess, how it worked for a long time. But one of the things you couldn't do is if I wanted to put like a text box between these case sampler widgets, I couldn't do that because the case sampler widgets are always going to be in the same order every time. So the seed is going to always, come before the CFG, which is going to come before the sampler, and they're always going to be grouped together. So that's something you cannot do with group nodes. So that's pretty much group nodes in a nutshell. They allowed you to do what subgraphs can do, but also you could rename. So if I wanted to turn sampler underscore name into just sampler, I would type that, save it, and it would update that. I could close that, and you could rename them. I think you could also add like emojis, probably. Yeah, there we go. That's not a new feature. So that was kind of cool. And you could also ungroup them. So you could right click and then convert to nodes, and they would go back to the workflow here. So that was something that people were saying you couldn't do with subgraphs, and community rallied together and said that it was a feature they wanted. So they actually added that feature here. They did it pretty fast, faster than I was expecting too. So if you select all of your nodes, come up to this menu, and then you can click on convert selection to subgraph. And by default, you can't see the widgets exposed here. This is something that I know at least one person complained about. I'm not sure how the rest of the community feels about this, but I did open an issue on GitHub talking about default widgets. And since they were connected by default in group nodes, I don't know what changed in their philosophy, but that's going to be up to them to decide whether to make these connected by default or not. So if you want to enter the subgraph, you could either double click it, or you could click this feature or this button in the corner, and that will open the subgraph, and it'll show you a breadcrumb trail. So if I click on this root folder, I guess you could call it, then it would go back out. And the subgraph actually has its own minimap. So if I zoom out here and I place the camera right here, then I exit the subgraph, and I position the root subgraphs camera somewhere else, and I go back in, it'll save the zoom level and the position of the camera. So that was a feature that was added recently. That was gives you pretty nice quality of life bump. And then from here, so the way you would expose widgets is you would drag a noodle from this little doohickey. This is what they call the input node, and you would just link them up with the widget that you want. And on the corresponding backend, you have the output node, which exposes the outputs that you might need to link up to other nodes outside. So we only need the image. So if I connected like the latent, for example, you can see on the outside, I can then connect the latent to something else. But I don't need it, so I'm going to undo that. How you would delete it is you would right click and then remove slot. I could disconnect it without deleting it, or I could rename it into something else. I could make it lowercase, for example, and you can double click and then it opens a little text field. So I'm just going to remove that. And then here's the cool thing, is that you could add these widgets in whatever order you want. So with group nodes, you couldn't, for example, connect the seed and then the steps and then a text box here, and then continue on with the CFG, the sampler, and then a second text box, and then these empty latents, and then the scheduler and denoise. So if I back out of the subgraph, you can see they're all connected in the order that I specified, and it's not making a fuss about it. So you can organize them however you like. Now, something you can't do is reorder them by right-clicking, and then there's no option to move the input up or down, or the widget up or down. That is something that's on their radar, so hopefully that gets added soon. Because let's say you wanted to move the denoise above the steps, what you would have to do is delete every single one of these widgets one by one, and that just takes a long time and adds unnecessary strain on your wrist, and then you would have to reconnect everything all over again. So that's really, for me, that's one of the more important features. But hopefully that's coming. Let's see. So the input node is a little bit, it threw people off because it doesn't look like a traditional node. This is what a traditional node looks like. This doesn't have any like opacity. It's just see-through. But you can click and drag it from around here. Kind of have to guess where its body is. And I guess they just styled it with CSS to make it see-through. But this is, in fact, the input node, and you can't delete it. Like if I try selecting it and then I hit delete, it doesn't go anywhere. So it's permanent. It's a permanent fixture of the subgraph. So is the output node. And to rename the widgets, you would just double-click them here. You could take that away, add an emoji or something. And when you back out again, it appears on the widget. So that's something you couldn't do without subgraphing. Now, like if I just had a case sampler, for example, there's no way to rename this widget. Not that I know of. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no way. You would have to convert it to a subgraph first, go in, connect the widget, and then rename it. So but one thing you couldn't do originally was unpack these, and like I said, the community asked for this feature, and so they added it. And so over here you can see if I select a subgraph, if I select a regular node, that feature doesn't pop up. So The features in this menu here are going to be relevant to whatever node you have selected. So select subgraph, and I can click this button to unpack, and it just expands all of them again. And if I undo that, I want to show you something. If I move this node all the way down here, I back out, and then I unpack it, it'll retain the position of that node that I just moved. So it keeps the position of the nodes as they were in the final state of the subgraph rather than the state they were in when you created it. So that's pretty cool. So it's keeping track of a lot of things there. And you know, you can just click this button as many times as you want to open them back up again. I have heard of some perhaps custom nodes getting disconnected. So for example, impact switch, if this was connected to, let's say, this here, and then I connected two latents to that switch, if I combine these into a subgraph, you can see it disconnects, but I'm pretty sure that's not a bug with subgraphs. It's more so a bug with how this node handles data types, because it does have like a wildcard feature, so you can connect images to it, you can connect latents. You see it won't accept an image now until I fix it, recreate, and then it'll accept images. So my guess is that when things like that happen, like if you disconnect a subgraph, or if you create a subgraph or unpack it, and then some node like this disconnects, my guess is that's happening because it's a custom node and it's not really written to interface with subgraphs just yet. So that's going to be on custom node developers to make them work. So something cool you can do with subgraphs is something like this. You can see how there's this load image node that's starting off, and then if I click run here, it just went in a cycle. So it sends the signal from the load image to this fifth index, loops around, goes into the fourth index, goes back again, the third, the second, the first, and then it outputs it in this preview image node here. So subgraphs, even though there's an output being connected to their input, they're designed not to detect a dependency cycle unless there's an actual dependency cycle happening. So if I jump into this subgraph right here, we'll see what's going on. So the load image is going into this fifth index here. It's going into this preview bridge, which just allows me to connect to pass the same image from the input to the output. And then it's going back out again. On the outside, it's going in a circle. It's connecting back to this fourth index here, and then it's going to this preview bridge, and so on and so forth until it reaches this one. Then it goes back out and finally exits into its destination. So subgraphs are pretty cool in that way. They allow you to pack up a lot of nodes from whether they're at the end of your workflow or the beginning. Doesn't matter. You can feel confident knowing that it's not going to create an error, at least with the core nodes, and it's not going to create like a dependency cycle, which it did in the beginning. So these, I like subgraphs. Trying to report bugs where I can so they can improve and reach the state that we all know they should be. I know they're going to move this badge here, or they want to move it to the top left, either the top left or the top right, and merge it into this button here, but I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that yet. There's no way to turn it off right now, the same way you can with node IDs and node names. So I think that covers it. You can rename this whatever you want. And so you can create some pretty cool, I guess, switchboards with this. So if you have like a Boolean, you can, make it do one of two things if you set it up correctly. There's a lot of possibilities with these things. So I hope that gives you some insight. I hope it shows you how they're maybe not superior, but how they're different from group nodes and the potential they have to become superior. And yeah, that's all from me, and have a good one.